What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at Halloween 2018. This review is going to be really long. Let's waste no time. Let's get right into it. Okay, kicking it off with my positives. First, I think the overall production value of this movie is awesome. This movie looks fantastic. I think David Gordon Green, as a director, did a really good job with this movie. I think he created a good atmosphere for the most part. I think a lot of his scenes have a good amount of suspense, particularly the climax of this movie and probably my favorite scene in the whole movie, the motion sensor scene in the backyard in the backyard of Mr. Elrod's house. I think those two are the strongest directed scenes with the most atmosphere, most suspense. But overall, I think the movie itself is just really well done. It's really well directed. David Gordon Green, like I said, did a good job. He took inspiration from the 1978 movie, but he put his own spin on it and made it his own. And you can't ask for much for a director to take some influence, but put his own spin on it. So no complaints with that whatsoever. The cinematography in this movie, this is a good looking picture. I think Michael Cimins' cinematography is fantastic. You have a lot of cool visual cues in this movie, a lot of cool tracking shots in this movie, and it's just an overall. It just, along with Gordon Green's direction, it gives this movie its own unique modern feel while still having that 78 influence. So cannot complain whatsoever with either the direction or the cinematography. The writing for this movie is co-written by Green and Danny McBride, and for the most part, you have a pretty good script. It has a little bit of inconsistencies and things that are not fully fleshed out, but for the most part, for the core elements, I think those core elements are relatively well written and they work for me. And you can clearly tell that Green and McBride are fans of the Halloween franchise, and they did a lot to pay tribute to these characters and to the franchise as a whole. So I cannot complain with that whatsoever. The cast. Overall, I think this movie is one of the best acted movies in the entire Halloween franchise. Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode puts on a fantastic performance. This Laurie Strode is like Sarah Connor in Terminator 2. But if you're familiar with either Halloween or Terminator, James Cameron took a lot of inspiration from Halloween when he did Terminator, because that original Terminator movie is shot like a slasher movie, and the Terminator Arnold portrays is kind of like Michael Myers. And when you can look at Laurie Strode and Sarah Connor in the 1978 Halloween and in the original Terminator movie, their characters are very similar. Their character arcs are very similar. So it's only natural that this Laurie takes from Terminator 2. It kind of makes both those two franchises come together in a very unrelated but cool way. But overall, this Laurie suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, she is just living in fear to the point where she has become this over reliance on being a survivalist. Her entire house is pretty much riddled with just traps and guns and stuff. She has a broken relationship with her daughter. She has an awkward relationship with her granddaughter, but her granddaughter wants to have a relationship with her and vice versa. But because Laurie just can't let go of Michael, it's preventing her from living out her life. I compare it to an ex-wife still having a lot of love and emotion for an abusive ex-husband. And that example plays out in the prison scene in this movie. With that music cue and the way Laurie looks at Michael in that scene, brilliant stuff. I love it a lot. It adds so much to Laurie's character and to Michael's character in a way as well. Even though Michael does not speak and he's not faceless, he is a character. He does have character moments. Speaking of which, James Jude Courtney as Michael Myers, fantastic. James Jude Courtney has become one of my favorite Michael Myers. The more times I watch this movie, the more I love his performance as Michael Myers. He takes the finesse of Nick Castle's 1978 Myers, and he combines that with the brutality and sheer ferocity of Rob Zombie's Tyler Mane Michael Myers. And what you have is a brutal Michael Myers with finesse. But James Jude Courtney also puts his own spin on it as well. He gives Michael a more cat-like predator feel to him, and given that one of the themes in this movie, when I get to the Sartain character, though I don't think it was really well executed, but it's a concept that I would have liked to have seen get fleshed out more because it really intrigued me. But it gives Michael a more predator type feel to him. It's like Michael's the alpha predator, and he wants to take on, the best game in a way. And I think James Drew Courtney translated that on screen perfectly. Michael in this movie has a lot of great scenes. The opening scene when he's talking to the two podcasters, I love that scene. There's this great scene on the freeway where Michael kills a man and he kills the man's son in the car, which is great. Michael kills a kid in this movie. That's fucking awesome shit. The scene where he kills the two podcasters in a rest stop, but he also kills the two gas station attendants as well, and he puts on the mask. We actually get a moment where Michael puts on his mask, and it's a great moment. I love it a lot. And then and of course you have the now cool tracking shot where Michael kills the woman in the house. He stares at a baby, and for a split second you think Michael's going to kill the baby, but he walks out to another house, and he goes into another person's house, pretty much bangs her head against the window post, then stabs the bitch in the neck. Great stuff, great scene. As I said before, the motion sensor scene in the backyard with the kid, great fucking scene also. That's done with relatively no music at all. It's just camera work, atmosphere, and suspense, and acting, and the motion sensor scene is like I said, that's one of the best highlights of this movie in the entire movie as well. And like I said, James Jude Courtney is fantastic as Michael all throughout the movie as well too, especially in the climax. Michael in this movie takes a lot of damage in this movie. He gets shot in the arm. He loses 2 of his fingers. This is the most damaged Michael Myers probably in the entire history of the franchise. And he just keeps on going and he keeps on going. And it's great stuff. I like it a lot. Cannot praise James Jude Courtney enough as Michael Myers. He's one of the best ones. The character of Karen Strode, she's a good character as well. I like her arc I think Judy Greer did a good job playing Karen Strode. The first half, her performance was a little clunky, but in the second half, Judy Greer brings her A game. I mean, she's not really in the movie all throughout. She has like scenes here and there, but she does have a distinct arc. She grows into the survivalist that her mother wanted her to be in a way. Karen Strode's whole thing is that she's trying to suppress what her mother taught her, trying to create a fantasy for herself that the world is not full of bitterness and anger, but it's full of sunshines and rainbows. And throughout the course of the movie, she starts to realize that her way of thinking is not the real way of thinking. That the world is a dark and cruel place, and you have to survive it if you want to live. And I like how she learns that at the end of the climax. Kind of brings her character full circle. I think Judy Greer did a good job overall, though there are moments where her acting can be really, really flat and very, very clunky and awkward. The character of Allison, played by Adi Matichak, I like her a lot. I like the relationship she has with Laurie. I like how she's more like Laurie in a way. A more modernized version of Laurie is the character of Allison. Though her character, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot. She doesn't really play a factor in the climax when you really look at it. The entire climax could have just been Laurie and Karen together facing off Michael, and Allison's really just there as set decoration. I mean, she does have one of the best scenes in the whole movie where she's being chased by Michael Myers, and you got that amazing music playing in the background, which brings me to the overall soundtrack and score. This is one of the best Halloween soundtracks ever created. John Carpenter, the man himself, returns to do the score with his son Cody and another guy, and these three fucking nail it out of the park. One of the best Halloween scores ever is in this movie. I love it. The Shape Hunts Allison, great fucking track. The prison montage track, great stuff. The new rendition of the theme, outstanding. This movie has got a lot of cool stuff in it. I really, really like it a lot. Another thing I like a lot. There's this character in this movie called Julian. He's a funny little kid. He's very, very funny. I like the scene he has with his babysitter where they're just bantering back and forth. It's really, really funny. Though I have an issue with the character of Julian, and I'll address that when I get to my negatives momentarily. But overall, I want to stress I like the character of Julian. I think he's legitimately funny, and he's one of the very few child actors who does not come across as being annoying. He comes across as being legitimately funny. So that stuff is great. And like I said earlier, the climax in this movie is fantastic. Seeing Michael lose two of his fingers, and then it's revealed that the entire house is just one big giant trap for Michael, and Laurie pretty much burns it. And Michael, he just stares up and he's looking at the three Strodes, and I equate that to Walter White in Breaking Bad, when Hank. There's this cool scene. There's this episode in Breaking Bad called Bullet Points in season 4, where Hank shows Walt a karaoke video of a character called Dale Brodiker, and he sees this poem that's illustrated WW, and Hank is naming off names as to what WW could be, and he says Walter White as a joke, and Walt's just like, "Ha, you got me." I equate Michael being had in this movie as Walter White, as him saying, "Ha, you got me, Laurie. You got me. You got one over on me." I just think that's the way Michael just stares at him is you're waiting for him to say, "You got me, touche." I think that's pretty cool. I like that stuff a lot. So yeah, those are my positives. Now it's time for my negatives. This movie has a lot of supporting casts that had potential, but they don't go nowhere. And to me, I want to cover the two big ones, but I want to get rid of some meaningless ones. The character of Cameron Lamb, who is the son of Lonnie Lamb from the original movie, he's Allison's boyfriend. Doesn't really go nowhere. You see them together. You see Cameron cheat. They have a fight, and he disappears. You don't see him again. Kind of useless. There's this. There are these two podcasters who are at the beginning of the movie. They're just there to set up the plot. They overall just fodder for Michael to kill. They don't really add much to the movie as well, because the entire plot of them being podcasters is really abandoned once Laurie gets in the picture once Laurie takes over the movie in the second half of this film. In the second half. There's the character of Frank Hawkins. Now we're getting to my two characters who will have potential, but I think the movie's screwed up on. The character of Frank Hawkins, played by Will Patton. This character... Oh wait, before I talk about that, there's this sheriff character who does absolutely nothing. He's completely useless. You could have merged him with Frank Hawkins, and this movie would have been much better. The character of Frank Hawkins, it's revealed that he was the one that arrested Michael at the end of the 1978 movie. So automatically, his character's got some merit. His character has got something going for him. This movie hints that he and Laurie have a relationship with one another, in terms of what happened in that night in '78. So there's a history there. I don't like the fact that his character is pretty much rendered obsolete near the end of the movie, because nothing happens with him. Instead of this character being the new Sheriff Brackett, he just gets killed off, and I'm puzzled as to why. I would have liked to have seen him in the climax helping Laurie and the girls fight off Michael. Instead, because there's a history there. He's the one who'd arrested Michael. And throughout the entire movie, he says, I'm not gonna let nothing stand in the way of justice. I'm gonna blow this motherfucker's head off. Will Patton was giving a really good performance, and his character was really starting to get on board with the character of Hawkins. And they killed him off. And they did it by having the character of Dr. Sartain do it. Sartain in this movie is the protege of Dr. Loomis. I understand the concept. And before I talk about that, the movie reveals that Sartain was the one that caused Michael's bus to have the accident, which leads to Michael's escape and him terrorizing the town of Haddonfield. I understand the concept of why Sartain did it. He wants to study Michael's evilness, and by doing that, he wants to study Michael as if Michael is an animal. He wants to see the animal in his natural habitat, which is killing. That's how Sartain, in order for Sartain to get into the mind of Michael, he wants to see Michael in his natural way, which is killing. I understand the concept of what they were trying to do. I think it was sloppily executed, because when you watch the movie, it comes across as another Curse of Michael Myers, where Sartain wants to, I don't know, in a way, kind of like be Michael's handler and take him over, or something stupid like that. And Sartain killing off Hawkins and wearing Michael's mask is kind of really stupid. And his character is rendered completely fucking useless, because Michael just stomps his fucking face in him, and his brain splat all over the place. In the grand scheme of things, Sartain had there was something going with Sartain wanting to study Michael in his natural habitat, as pretty much as like a researcher studying animals in in the wild, but the movie sloppily executed it, and I get what they're trying to do. It just came across as just really weak. It didn't work for me, and the character of Sartain, at the end of the day, he's rendered useless when Michael pretty much stomps his face in. And then you have this other scene with these two cops talking about food, which is kind of like McBride and Gordon trying to do their best Tarantino, and it's 40 seconds of this does not need to be here. You could have given these 40 seconds to something else that needed it more. So, and then we get to the character of Julian, and my biggest negative with Julian. I'm all for comedy and horror, but I do not want the comedy to undercut the horror. There is a scene where Julian's babysitter is being brutalized by Michael, and Julian is saying funny stuff. I don't like that because that undercuts the tension, and it makes that scene tonally confused because you're trying to create dread, and then your audience is laughing at what this kid is doing. You don't do stuff like that. It creates a tonal shift, and it makes the scene that should be terrifying very confused because now you don't know to be scared of or to start laughing. And yeah, to me that takes away from the dread and the suspense of the scene of the scene being talked about. I'm not a fan of that stuff. I will never be a fan of that stuff. I don't like it. I overall like the character of Julian, but you have to use a character like that in very, 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 very delicately. You cannot have that comedy undercut tension when something is happening. It confuses the audience, and your scene ends up being a jumbled mess. Don't like it, don't like it, don't like it, don't like it. So, yeah, I think I pretty much covered all my positives and my negatives with this movie. I still like the Halloween 2018 movie. It's one of the better Halloween sequels to have been made. I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10. The positives and negatives have an even balance, but there's too much good to not give this movie an 8 out of 10. Because the good outshine the negatives in every which way possible. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Halloween 2018. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. Do you like it? Do you hate it? I would like to know. Like the video and subscribe, and I will check you back next time for more.